You in the 41st chapter. In this chapter, a very fundamental one, speaking about avodah, what it means, divine service. So to serve God, and not to be self-serving, right, is the idea that there's a yoke upon you that you feel the sense of servitude. As opposed to what it means love, this is the idea of fear. We'll get to love later on in chapter 43 in detail. We will mention it a bit today. But service, that's the beginning. That we're here to serve. Before even love, there has to be the sense of that we're here as a servant of God to do what he needs. It might be small little things. So we used it in Hebrew, the word is a bittul, self-abnegation, to give yourself over. So we're talking about giving yourself over to, might be small little things, but whatever that God needs from us. And we said that that was a complete service. That when you sense that, when you maybe didn't even feel it in your heart, but you sensed it in your mind, that sense of fear, or a higher level, awe, or reverence, awe, whatever term you want to use. Okay. Now, what happens if an individual, not moved by this thought of bestowing upon themselves God as their king? Furthermore, they're not even moved by the consideration that God is actually seeing everything that we do and scrutinizing us to see if we're serving him as is fitting to serve him. In other words, as much as are we really, he knows what's going on in our heart. He knows what's going on in our thoughts. So are we just, going through the motions? Are we truly serving or not? So, and why is God doing that, as we've explained previously, is because it matters to him. It's important, truly important, our service to him. So therefore, he's scrutinizing it. Not scrutinizing it to be punishing, but to actually empower us. And what happens if you're not moved by that? Not, forget about moved in your heart. How about just moved in your mind? Which the truth is not so simple even in your mind just to be moved by that. So why wouldn't you be moved? So the Alter Rebbe explains, because souls come from different levels in the divine order of things, from different worlds, right? Atzilus being the highest world where great righteous individuals come from, uniquely righteous. World of Bria, also even righteous people come from their lesser level. But maybe a soul doesn't even come from the world of Yitzhak, world of formation, the third world. Maybe it comes from the fourth world, the world of Asiya, which I suggest most of our souls do come from in our generation. And it's not a negative thing. And even in the world of Asiya, perhaps our soul comes from a lower degree of the divine attributes, the 10 spheros. And we come from a lower level, Malchus of Malchus, the lowest of the lowest. Right? Again, which is not a negative thing, as we have explained in the past, and we will perhaps touch upon later. The point being that therefore we're not so spiritually refined that we can either feel in our heart a reverence or awe towards God, or even in our minds that it should move us. Nevertheless, says the Alter Rebbe, even if that's not happening, since the intent is to serve God with this service, what you're doing, right? That's called Avodah Gemura, a complete service. It's a complete service of God. So actually, it says the truth is, serving God and fear of God are two separate things. two separate mitzvahs of the 613 mitzvahs. So one doesn't exclude the other. In other words, the fact that I am mindful of this, this is my intent to serve God. He's the king. I'm a servant, right? I'm not the king, right? Not even for a day. Not even for a day. Although we like to be, right? But meaning we like to be served. That's what a king is, served, and that's what we like. That's what we like. But no, the fact that this is what my intent is, even though I don't feel it or I don't even intellectually kind of have a sense of it in my mind that moves me, hey, that's a complete service, because that service, fear is a separate mitzvah. Fear meaning reverence, awe of God. It's a separate mitzvah. That's the first point that Rebbe makes. But he says the truth is, it's even a fear of God. This recognition that I have an intent to serve as a servant serves the king, to do what, God needs. Why? Why is that? Why is that also the fear of God? So he explains interestingly here. Because at that moment, what are you thinking? I'm a servant of God, right? So at that moment, you have the sense of presence of God. That fear of, for example, that when just an ordinary person is watching you, you refrain from something that would be unseemly in the eyes of others. You refrain from that, right? Your feet are on the table and someone walks into the room, kind of move your feet from the table. Why? I mean, I'm giving that as a metaphor. Maybe some people don't do that, right? They kind of do the same. What they do privately, they'll do publicly. Sometimes that's not so. That means there's a disconnect there, right? I don't want to use I just use feet on the table, but you can think of other things, I'm sure, right? So he brings this idea that this is called fear from the Talmud that speaks about Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, what he said to his disciples on his deathbed. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai was the leader of the Jewish people in Jerusalem upon the fall of Jerusalem, the second holy temple in the year 69 to the hands of the Romans. And afterwards, sometime later, he passed away. And he says to his students, may it be God's will that you have the fear of heaven, he uses the word fear of heaven, upon you like the fear of a human being. And his disciples protest. He said, that's it? That's all you expect from us? We're not better than that? Just like we should fear God as we fear a human? So he responds, well, that itself is a pretty lofty level, because when a person commits a sin, what do they say to themselves? What does a person say to themselves when you want to do wrong? May no one see me, right? Because we know it's wrong, but may no one see me. That's why when you have your feet on the table, like in a whatever, in a uncouth manner, someone walks in, you don't want anybody to see that. So now, when someone walks into the room, you might take those feet down. I'm using that as a metaphor that you will, because you don't want to be seen that way. Period. Right? So Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai calls that fear. In other words, it's the presence of another person. This is called Yirat Tatal, the lower level of fear, right? Which is the presence of God that leads you to act in a more appropriate manner, just like the presence of another person leads you to, and this is what Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai said, and this is Therefore, the fact that an individual is mindful that, and even though you're mindful of the fact that God is watching, even though you're not moved by that fact, but you're mindful of it, period. That's called fear of God and service of God, both things. Now, the higher level of fear or reverence, or actually is awe, that you're overawed by the presence of God. Here you're just mindful. The lower level is just mindful of it, and that leads you to act a little differently. The higher level is not only are you mindful of it, but it's like, ooh, it takes your mind and your heart, and you are. There's no audio on Instagram? Oh no. Oh, because someone called in. Shoot. There's something funny that's happening. Someone called in, and because of that. Hold on 1 second. Is there now? Is there audio now? I don't know what to do about this. Sorry, still no audio. Okay, so I have to stop. Sorry, folks. I don't know what the problem is there. Oh, give me a moment. My apologies. Okay. So the higher level is a sense of overwhelmed presence of God, that it touches your mind and your heart. So there's two levels of fear / reverence / awe. Now, if there isn't this minimal level of just being aware of the presence of God, that you are in his presence, and you do just with love of God, then it's like one wing of a bird and it doesn't fly above. Because a bird needs two wings, our mitzvahs needs two wings, and needs fear and love. If it's lacking the fear and only you're motivated by love, so all you need is love is not true, right? Similarly, if you only have fear and you don't have love, it's also one wing. Now, even though that's the beginning, that's wonderful, but it's still not enough. We need to have both. We need to be a servant of God and a child of God. Servant out of service, reverence, awe, the two levels, which we call that fear of presence, the presence of God, right? And the question is how present that is, that and the love of God, which is metaphorically like a child serving a parent, or not serving a parent, attached to a parent out of love, the bond. Now, we have this in our soul. It's a natural love and reverence that the soul has for God, but it's hidden in our heart. And therefore, what do we got to do? Minimally bring it out to the conscious mind, to recall the love of the one God in our thoughts and the desire that we have to cleave to him. That's love. And at the same time, out of a reverence out of a sense of presence of God. That's the reverence, right? In other words, when your feet are on the table and someone walks in, that's kind of a reverence to a person that you take down your feet. When you don't take that down your feet, it means you're not really showing respect to that person. That's not, not appropriate. You engage a person that way. So you need both of them. And this is what our intent should be when we occupy ourselves, as we're doing right now in learning Tanya, learning Torah, and with any particular mitzvah that we're engaged in. And this is what our soul is truly it's a part of our soul, and now we just need to bring to our conscious mind to be aware of it when we study Torah, when we do a mitzvah. Both the son who does out of love and the servant who serves out of fear and awe.